This is a Momentum Media production.
Nerd alert! Property Nerds, the home for data-driven property investors, where we uncover Australia's hot and cold markets, latest headlines and trends.
Good day, everyone. This is your host, Arjun Paliwal from InvestorKit Buyers Agency, and back again for another episode on the Property Nerds Show. Today, I've got some news, both exciting but also some rough news to share. Essentially, I'm not going to be here for a couple of months. So the episode you're hearing today will be the last of me for maybe a month or two. Could be longer, but month or two for now. I've shared some news and some health in the past and some podcasts. And long story short, I've got a health matter regarding my heart that needs surgery. And so I'm going for open heart surgery in a couple of days. And yeah, it will be a procedure called the Ross procedure, which will be pretty full on. If you want to Google that and check it out, it's like an 8-hour surgery, I think it is. It's pretty crazy. But the main thing is for everyone here, it's a blessing in disguise and something I want to share. And I've shared this in another podcast, but I want to share it once again. Go get yourself checked. Honestly, go get yourself checked. You know, you're on this show because you're loving the data, the research, and how we can come together, both the listener and myself here, to build wealth and do it the right way through data. But part of building wealth is also protecting it. And part of building wealth is also doing it for the future. And part of building wealth also needs time on this earth and needs you to, compound that time on this earth, compound on those assets. So there's no use, doing all of that if you're not going to be around, or if you're not going to set yourself up to be around for the future and for those that you love and having all that you've built pass on to them. So that's just a friendly reminder. And I want to quickly just share the story. I mean, I went and did a life insurance application because I was looking to protect myself. And as a result of doing that life insurance application, I got declined for cover. And getting declined for cover was pretty shocking for me because I'd been on a big health kick, losing a lot of weight and feeling pretty good. And so as a result, I found that I had a heart issue that I was born with. So nothing I could control. And that heart issue was, pretty crazy to hear about at 32. And so over the last couple of months, it's been rocky, just going through a lot of tests, cameras down your throat and checking the back, and then stuff going through your arteries on your hand, and then going all the way up and checking your artery health and all that sort of stuff. And then multiple scans, ECGs, you name it, all the crazy stuff. But the good news is there's a procedure out there that can help for someone of my age, because usually most people find the symptoms and figure it out in their 50s and 60s. And it's a bit of a silent killer, but once they find it out, they get something done. But those solutions are usually short term, like 8 to 10 years. And 8 to 10 years won't take me very far if I do those solutions at my age. So this procedure, the Ross procedure, is a solution that will get me a lot more out of it, but it'll be a very complex procedure. And fortunately, I found the best in Australia, in Melbourne, which I'm very, very lucky for, that I'm going to go travel over in the coming days to go get it done. And yeah, so it means I'll be out of action. And as a result as well, Lee, who's my, wife and co-host, she'll be there by the side supporting me. And little Ruby will be with us in Melbourne as well. So we'll both be out of action for a little bit. And so with today's episode, I wanted to just let you know of that in case you go, hey, we're long-time followers, we're long-time listeners, we tune in all the time, and what the hell's happening? Arjun's not here. Well, that's the news straight from me, just to tell you why and what's happening in life. So please go get yourself checked, because had I not applied for life insurance, had I not seen my financial planner to go through that, I wouldn't have found out. How crazy is that? Because it's something I was born with. And you don't know symptoms when you're born with something because you think that it's just normal. That's just you. And the last thing I'd want is anyone listening to this and going, no, I'm fine. Everything's great. And then something happens to you and, a heart attack or something like that way too early in life, because they're telling me that literally in the next 5 years, I could have had something happen. So to hear that news is pretty shocking. But the main thing is there are solutions out here. We live in the most amazing country. Like for me to go from finding out to 5 different types of tests to multiple opinions to booking in surgery, and then that too being referred on to the number 1 person in the country for this type of surgery, and then to be escalated from waitlist months long to make it happen quick. Like, this is the moments where I go, never complain about paying too much tax again. Never complain about how you think something could have been a bit better, or the politics could have been better, or not that person. I'm pro this or I'm anti that. Like, let's just throw that all aside for a moment and just realize that we live in a pretty amazing country. And so just to reflect on that is something special. But at the same time, yeah, just a friendly reminder, go get your checks done and look after yourself. Because when you're on the show tuning into things about building wealth, there's usually a reason behind it. Because, you know what, if you're building wealth for the sake of just clonking some assets together and you think it's cool, you know, there's probably some better stuff to do. You're usually building it for a reason, whether it be for your betterness, for your partners, for your family, or for those, you know, the future generations, future family that you're one day going to have. So yeah, I just think that it's important to have that consideration. But hey, look, it's enough about that. I do this because I genuinely love what I do, and I want to share as much as I can on the show to continue to help. And so even when I'm away, you're going to hear from some amazing team members of mine. And to be honest, they should get more credit than I do. They put together the research papers, majority of it, and do an amazing job. They hand select markets for our team and our clients to outperform, which we have done again and again. And they produce some of the most leading blog posts in the nation from the amount of subscribers we have. Like, we're crossing over 500,000 downloads now across our podcasts, and, you know, over tens of thousands that download regularly each time a white paper comes out. So, you know what? I'm here. I get to take a little bit of that credit on these podcasts, but the truth is it's all them. So the fact that you're going to hear from them over the next couple of months is going to be epic. It's going to be so cool. So yeah, tune in. There'll be loads of cool research papers like our housing fundamentals for 24-25 financial year, the regions where the rents are expected to explode. That's some upcoming stuff. So I'm spoiling a bit, but that's what's coming up ahead. In terms of today, though, I'm going to go into more of what we did last episode. So if you haven't tuned into the last episode, it's actually about cycle analysis. It's going into the blueprint of what we do at InvestorKit Buyers Agency to win Buyers Agency of the Year, the only company in the country to go back to back, 23 and 24, through outstanding results for our clients. And you know, where it comes through is us and our ability to pick markets and their positions in the respective cycles. So if you want to learn all about that, how you do that, what cycles are called, what they demonstrate, why they should be in there, some examples of markets in each position, go to the last episode and check it out. As for this episode, I'm going to now go, hey, maybe you know where the cycle positions are. What is the formula InvestorKit Buyers Agency applies to actually building and scaling portfolios, and why do we follow this formula? So you're going to learn about the formula. You're going to learn about the strategy we deploy. It's the same strategy I've deployed for my portfolio that's, you know, well over 13 million now. And that was done just over the last 9 years. And so I'll take you through this formula today, and we'll make sure that you know the in-depth parts of why this formula works and where you can start on this formula, because you don't all start from the same starting position, and how you can use this to build a truly scalable portfolio. So how we start it is firstly understand the phases. Phase 1 is called a foundation asset. Phase 2 is called a momentum asset. And phase 3 is called passive assets. When you're looking at these three phases, you also have another three phases that don't represent the property. So those three phases are the property selection. The next three phases are the portfolio phase. There is acquisition, as you're buying lots of assets. There's optimizing. This is the most boring part, where you're not buying, you're sitting there and you're just trying to figure out how you squeeze the best out of each asset, maybe renovate it a little bit, or maybe refine your interest rates, that sort of stuff. And then you have the consolidate. This is where you figure out how to actually draw income. Because you would have heard those stories, right? Like, hey, how do I get to 10 properties to create a 100K passive? Well, here's the thing. You don't create the passive from how many properties you have. You create the passive from how little debt against the properties you have. So don't forget, the buying part's cool, but the debt part's only cool at the time of buying. It ain't cool at the end when you're trying to get the income out. You don't want that. So it's usually most people that have portfolios who've done it at quick periods of time, they're doing the buying part. They're not doing the income part. You know, even in my portfolio at over 13 mil, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I'm on hundreds and hundreds of thousands of passive income and life's sorted and I'm good and I don't need to work another day and business is just a side thing. No, I'd be biased and I'd be lying. What I've done is good from a building wealth, but the income comes later on in life. If I want income today, I can by consolidating some, but it'd be far less than what my goal is. So don't get too excited about all the stories of building a portfolio. That's just one phase. That's the acquisition phase. And then you go through optimize and consolidate. Okay, so I'll take a pause before I go into any further rants or any further deep dives and just share what I've shared so far. What I've shared so far is two different models: foundation, momentum, passive. This is your property selection. And then portfolio phase is acquisition, optimize, consolidate. We're going to go to portfolio and then dive down to property. So an acquisition, starting there, when you're thinking of acquisition, is as simple as it sounds: buying lots of property. Now, when you're doing an acquisition, it's important to have a portfolio plan built. And this is something we do for every single client who onboards through InvestorKit Buyers Agency. You can just jump on investorkit.com.au. If you want to have a free chat, it's totally free, no obligations, no fees for this conversation, and you can learn more about that process. But portfolio planning is the first step. When we're planning it out, for some people, an acquisition phase looks like 4 properties. For some people, it's 10. Goals will change, income will change, financial position will change, time on life, time on earth, all these figures will change depending on who you are. But when you have a plan in place, you can figure out the depths and the desire of your acquisition phase. Now at your acquisition phase, you're essentially wanting to consolidate that as tightly as possible. And I don't mean to mix up the words of consolidate here again. I'll keep that separate. You want to tighten the phase as much as possible. Because think about it, if you have a 20-year goal ahead of you, or even a 30-year goal ahead of you, do you want debts rising for the majority of that period? Look, you don't. Honestly, I'd love for you to be my client forever and buy every single time, but that's BS. You don't want to be buying forever. I'd like you to only be my client for maybe 3 to 7 years. Beyond that, we're just relationships and friends checking in to make sure you're heading in the right direction. We're not buying for you. And if anyone tells you that you start to, no, keep buying, it's year 10, year 20, keep buying, then all it means is your goalposts are changing, and we can support that, meaning the income that you want to aim for or the time that you want, the portfolio is not as urgent as it needs to be and it can be kicked down the road further. Maybe you're not building it for your income anymore. Maybe you're building it for future generations. You don't mind taking it on. Different story. But if you had a designated goal, you probably don't want to be buying for longer than 3 to 7 or max 10 years. And so the idea there is that you want your debt to go into a different direction eventually over time. Now, when you're going in that debt to the different directions, it can go down in different ways. One is it can go down from how much money you throw into your offset accounts and you build the offset balance to offset that debt. Number 2 is it can go down passively through you just paying principal over time. Number 3, it can go down aggressively through selling a property and then throwing it into there. Number 4, it can also go down through inflation. Remember, inflation makes the debt worth less over time. So it's good for you if you have debt. And so as a result, it's going down without even going down because the asset values and rents are rising so quickly as the money means less in the future time. So that $1,000 a week that's expensive rent today might be very cheap rent in the future. So that's an example. Now it's $2,000. It can suddenly pay down that debt very easily. So these are the different ways you consolidate them. In no way are you actually moving your passive income up unless you're into some extremely high income assets where they can forever be on interest only and you never have to have them on principal and interest, which again is BS. They'll have to be on principal and interest eventually, or you're constantly in business or having a great income that you can keep extending the servicing forever. If your goal is not to have property to produce income to live on, then sure. But if it is for the majority, then no. You have to see that debt eventually come down, and those are some of the different ways it can come through it. So why would you want to keep acquiring property forever? So that's acquisition phase. Now, when you move into optimizing, you're basically going, hey, if I've done my buying in 5 to 7 years or 7 to 10 years, and if I know where I'm going to be and if I'm going to be okay in the future, that future's still 10 years away. What the hell do I do now? Well, this is where you can look at optimizing. Optimizing is all about a reflection on the asset, a reflection personally and professionally. So on professionally, it's where you take your income up over time in life. And as that income's rising over time in life, you're setting yourself up in a position to move to personal habits, which is where you can personally put more aside in your offsets. Or you can put personally more aside in vehicles that produce an income as well. Might be alternate things to property. And the idea here is that you're retiring the debt fast through your personal efforts and your savings going into offset. The second thing is you're also looking at it from a perspective of your property. And when the property is being looked at, you might go, hey, put a pair of, carpets for $5,000, $3,000, 7, 10, depending on the size of the place, could that uplift the rents enough so that my 10 grand, as an example, generated an extra $100 in rent? Now, if you're generating an extra $100 in rent thanks to that 10 grand, 100 times 52 is 5,200. And then if you're looking at that as a yield, that's a lot of yield on that 10 grand expense, right? That's a 52% return, right? That's huge, right? You're getting half your money back, and all you did is have that. So in 2 years, it's a positive ROI, and every year after that, it's worth it, right? So this is an example of you doing higher yielding improvements than what you'd get putting it in the offset account. You're really optimizing the property. If you're doing a bathroom or kitchen, it's harder to, but if it can still get that rental improvement that makes it a really strong investment, then it's going to be worth doing that rather than just parking the money in the offset. This is you offsetting your debts in another way through increased income to pay them down quicker or put money back into your offset quicker. So this is optimization. You might look at your mortgage rates, reflect on your broker's position and start refinancing things or review your position there. You might actually intentionally replace things to stop bigger expenses happening in the future. Example, you can patch and patch all over your roof and keep going. And then all of a sudden you've done that 10 times and you realize, wait, did I just spend 30 grand over the last 20 years patching this? What if I'd done the whole new roof for, 17 to 25, depending on the size of it, or maybe it's bigger, to 30 or 40K, and you've lasted it for now 25 years. So who knows, right? These are just examples of turning repairs that are smaller into larger, more meaningful things that last for longer. So this is the optimize phase. And this is the part that you have to learn to slap your wrist every time that you're thinking of, getting that juicy equity out that's sitting there and going, oh, I can't wait to buy a Lambo, or I can't wait to jump, buy a huge holiday somewhere. This is going to be great fun. Look, I'm not hating against you if you want to do that, because they're much better than car loans, right? But at the same time, I think it's just making sure you realize that every time you put your debt up, you're going closer to not having that income cover everything that you want to. Right. And this is where it's different for each type of person. If you're in business and you go, my business is going to last forever, I'm not going to be doing that one-on-one service from that business. My team will. And I don't mind using property for the wealth generation effects rather than the income. You might pull out equity. You might use it for other things. You might use it for, growing your buffer. You might use it to aggressively invest. And it's not about you living on an income. I get it, right? I'm in business too. I know what that's about. So the main thing is just knowing what you're trying to do here and realize that this is what the optimization phase can do for you. I'd already explained consolidation earlier when talking about acquisition, but the main thing here is just getting less debt, because everyone thinks you can have these income figures forever. The truth is interest-only loans don't last forever, and you've got to think of that. And so as you're thinking of that, this is where that debt picture can be a lot better if you manage it either down through paying it up in offset balances, paying it down in extra repayments, or selling some assets. A big one that I find after doing so many portfolio plans is huge, right? Take note of this one. An owner-occupier downsize. Massive, just massive results. I'll give you an example. Portfolio plan we recently designed for someone was their home that they're living in. And they came to us with a pretty decent sized home, and they came to us with a unit that was really underperforming. This is the most common scenario I see. Someone who has a home after they'd bought a unit, which they lived in for a bit, turned that unit to an investment, then moved into a home, happy that they got a home now, but then their unit's a investment and it's not performing so well. And they're like, my God, this is bad. Do I really know much about investing? Do I want to invest? They question their whole world. They need help. They come to us. We do the fixer-uppers. And when they're looking at their units, firstly, most of them get rid of it. But then the second thing is, if they don't have borrowing capacity, that is, but if they do, we'll go and purchase out their portfolio. And we start to realize that, hey, to hit your goal, you only need 3 more investments. And so they've got their 4 investments in total now. Now, with their 4 investments in total, it's one thing buying it, but the second thing is, how do you get an income from it? And everyone talks about the cool strategies, like you grab a home, you chuck a granny flat on it, you do the renovations, high yield markets, good cash flow markets. Again, I call BS, because if you go and grab a cash flow tool right now and you put in all those inputs in today's interest rates, and guess what? If you're taking equity from your home and you're using that as a deposit, your loans are 107% because you're covering the cost to purchase. You're covering the 100% from a 20% equity loan plus 80%. There's no place that's covering all of that, even at 7% rental yields. Go 8% if you want. You might get close to covering it, but maybe not. So the main thing is you get all these numbers, you got fancy strategies out there, you chuck them in and still not covering it. At some point, this debt's got to go. And it ain't happening in 10 years. And so as a result, what you want to now look at is go, my owner-occupier is growing in value. And you may not be living in that owner-occupier when you imagine the kids moving out, the rooms suddenly are too many spare. And then you go, well, hold on a minute. Haven't units grown less than houses over the long term in Australia? That means when you downsize, firstly, if it's your PPOR and it's all treated right from a tax perspective, principal place of residence that is, it's going to be tax-free on the sale, assuming the laws of today are still there in the future. But a tax-free sale, so firstly, all those gains, unlike an investment where, yay, it looks cool that your investment grew, but as soon as you start selling them, tax person's after you. So now you've sold your tax-free home. That was probably one of your larger assets, right? If you're listening to this and you're Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Adelaide, Perth, some of the major cities where things are a bit on the pricier side for homes to live in, you're talking $1 million to $2 million plus homes sometimes, but you're not investing $1 million to $2 million at all times. So those homes that you're selling as an investment, you're losing a stream of income and you're losing tax, and they're probably not the biggest size assets to compound on. So when you take that suddenly $1.5 million home that's doubled or tripled depending on how long your hold period is, suddenly you sell that tax-free with the largest compounding asset and you rebuy a poor performing asset but in a great location from a unit that you'd love. This works a lot. And all of a sudden that huge downsized cash just washes away by having all the money set and offset against your other investments that you couldn't get down to zero in time. And now you've got those investments producing an income. So that's the AOC strategy, right? Acquire, optimize, consolidate. This is what I'm living by, what my clients do, and what we're all working towards. Acquire in tight timeframes. Don't talk about buying unless you plan to for those other reasons mentioned. Move to optimize, hold ahead, hold the fort. Offset up well, grow income, career, travel, enjoy life. Come on, let me not make it about property every single time. If you want to have that extra trip, go for it. That's the optimize phase. You've done your hard yards. You've taken risks when everyone was too scared to. You took risks when everyone said not to. You took risks and did it faster when everyone said, no, wait, be patient. You went out there, equity loans, redrew money, 90% loans, 80% loans. You took out what you needed to get your goals hit. And then now consolidate. What pieces do we keep? What don't we keep? Or can you keep them all because you've done a great job with growing income, saving an offset, rents are rising, and you're just fine. So now we know that portfolio. Let's go down to a property level. Foundational assets and momentum assets, right? Whilst I said phase one for foundation and second phase was momentum, you don't have to perfectly start from foundation. Foundation came to me when I realized that there was a bit of a mindset issue across most Aussies investing in property. And to solve that mindset issue, sometimes you have to give in a little bit to get them comfortable with investing, and then you spread your wings. And this is where foundation got created from. So I'll give you the mindset issue. Many people are led to believe that capital cities and the capital word stands for capital growth. It doesn't. And as a result, everyone from a capital city investing thinks that their properties are the bee's knees or major markets are better and those economies are stronger. But look, we dive into the charts going back 40 years. We spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on data. Got a data scientist in our team, senior research analyst, myself as head of research. And there are regional cities all across Australia that have produced just as good, if not better, capital growth than some of our capitals. So as a result, that's the truth. But people just don't buy it. People just don't feel comfortable with it. And look, if that's the case, that's the case. But I'm just here to tell you that's the truth. And so now what happens is you go, well, if that's what they just don't feel comfortable with, and property investing is good for them, can you set up a comfortable launching pad for them to start to then get to work with opening that mindset? And this is where foundation came from. It's like, hey, can we look across major cities and satellite towns within commutable kind of 2 hours and below or around there to major cities and build a bit of a base? And these bases are still going to be, you look for performance, right? You're not looking just to go, hey, just because it's a foundation, buy something that never grows. You look for performance. And you're essentially going, how can I bring mindset to peace of mind? How can I give more comfort? How can I get those anchors? Because they tend to be bigger purchase prices too. 600K to 1.2 million typically I see. And now you're getting those anchors. You're getting one or two, because if you go more, you're unlikely to keep scaling and growing because of how heavy the losses are on the rent or how limited your capacity is. And so you want multiple streams too, right? So you can control what you keep, sell, hold, and all that stuff in the future. So don't spend forever here, but depending on your income position, I've seen people have 1 or 2 to others who've had 2 to 4. But usually after 4, like how many more satellite cities and major cities are there before you start capping out? And so once you've done these, you've got that anchor. You feel comfortable about their long-term compounding. There's a bit of familiarity, and that mindset part is usually put at ease. Now we move to momentum. And if you feel like, hey, I'm already up for this mindset, I'm open for it, I don't mind, I don't need to be in foundation, people just go to momentum straight away. And what momentum is going to the hottest markets spread across the country, wherever, don't care, wherever it is, as long as the numbers, the foundations, the economics, the trends are all looking good and rental yields are healthy, you get the trifecta. Some level of affordability, healthy rental yields, strong growth likely ahead. And this is where you do the most buying. This is where you'll get, if you've got a 4-property goal, you might have 1 in foundation, 2, 3, 4 in momentum. And if you're lucky, you get the 5th in passive or the 4th in passive. But the momentum is where you're spreading it around the country. And this is where you really got to be open, right? For example, my momentum moves recently is I purchased a couple of years back in Townsville. Another momentum move was, purchasing some years ago in Bendigo. These are some examples of momentum moves. Now we travel to passive. Passive is when you're looking at property slightly differently. You look back at your portfolio and you go, hey, I've got a couple of major markets in there. I'm spread across multiple states and the country with decent high growth, high yield, affordable assets. But I really feel like I don't want to go and have another 4 or 5 kitchens to maintain, bathrooms to think about, roofs to think about. I'm okay to essentially say goodbye to residential investing. And this is where we transition to commercial. And we're actually doing a lot of commercial purchases of late. So, by the way, this is something that's come now through the growth of our clients. So this is showing that the actual strategy works. If we weren't doing commercial purchases now, it'd be like, hey, you're kind of 6 years in as a business now. You've helped hundreds and hundreds of clients. When are you guys going to get to commercial investing? We're doing a lot of that now. We have our head of commercial at InvestorKit. And you would have also noticed maybe our commercial podcasts going regularly on the InvestorKit podcast. We do that and release it regularly. But yeah, commercial is now happening a lot more at InvestorKit because our clients are going through that journey over the 6 years of acquisition, over the 6 years of working with us. They've gone through foundation, they built momentum, and now they're transitioning to commercial. Commercial, typically, we're servicing between like 1 million, 1.2 up to about 3.5, 4. But in that price point is where we're starting to go now. You look back, you're going to be fine with your compounding wealth because you've got that residential base in foundational markets. You're really good for your upcoming growth and diversity because you've got those hotspots in momentum and they're spread across multiple states. Now you're moving to commercial because you're really trying to generate income. An example, we purchased a recent property for 2.5 million, and that particular property has a 6 and a bit % rental yield, leased on 5 years. You do the math, that's a pretty sweet number. It's a pretty sweet deal. All of a sudden, those deals, by the way, are net yields, not gross. And that person has a backed residential portfolio growing for them and compounding. This is when you can start to either A, scale up the portfolio of income, or B, you can go, hey, when I come to consolidating, this is the juicy one I want to keep in the portfolio. Because once you consolidate debts and you can maybe keep that downsize to clear the debt here or sell some residentials to clear the debts here, that's the one that brings home the bacon. That is the actual cash flower. Now, other types of commercial or non-commercial assets that we treat as passive could be a triplex. I have one in Bundaberg that's producing really good results. A quadplex or a block of 4. I have one in Tassie in Burnie that's producing phenomenal results. Bought that in 2017 and that boomed tremendously. I think I bought that for $365,000 for a block of 4. Crazy, right? Just crazy. And that's now worth over 1.1 million since I've done 150K of renovation. So that was my wire, optimize, consolidate type of play. And I renovated the block internally, bathrooms, kitchens, flooring, painting, external paint, landscaping, lighting, the whole lot across 4 small units, and bumped up their rents to around 11, I think, no, more than that, 310 per unit. So that's what, 1,240 rents and around 1.1 in value now, because the yields have dropped. They used to be much higher. Now the yields have dropped, which means the values have risen really fast. So that's an example of some, passive plays as well, the unit blocks that produce high numbers like that. And so taking a step back, this is how we scale portfolios at InvestorKit Buyers Agency. We take people through an acquisition, optimize and consolidate plan. We build a custom portfolio plan for each of them as part of our process. So it's not like you're coming in just to buy a property. You're getting a plan as part of it. And then secondly, we're choosing assets that are across foundation, momentum, and passive, depending on what your portfolio needs. And whilst we're considering this all, we're diversifying across multiple states. So you're not just going for the hottest market at every time. You might be seeing Queensland and WA kick it, and you might go, well, I want something in Victoria, New South Wales before those calm down and the next rise happens. We'll consider those because we can cycle analyze where each location is. And then using these strategies of acquire, optimize, consolidate, foundation, momentum, passive can take your portfolio to new heights. Now, all of this obviously depends on your financial position. Are you putting savings aside? Are you able to borrow? Do you have equity or deposits already put together? Are you in that growth mindset that wants to grow this? And look, do you even need help? You might not need our help, because remember, the majority of property investors do it on their own. And whilst we'd love to help more, the truth is there's a lot more people who do it on their own than use professionals like us for help. We'd want more people to help because we know we can make a difference with some of the strategies you've heard. But if you've heard this strategy and you're like, hey, I can do this on my own, credit to you. And so I hope this call or podcast helps you on learning about our portfolio scaling strategy and property buying strategy. And if you combine this with the last episode, bonus tip, you'll get a cycle analysis viewpoint as well. So that's it from me here today. My last show for a couple of months. Promise I'll be better, stronger when I come back. Looking to full recovery by August, I reckon, September latest. And I can't wait to have you meet some of the rest of the team at InvestorKit who'll be talking research as well, fellow nerds like myself and with compliments. And they love what we do here at InvestorKit, which is go deep into the data, go deep into the research. And they've got some exciting episodes coming up. So a guest on in the next one, and the 2 after that, we're going through some really cool research papers in the pipeline that we can't wait to share. So thank you for all your support, all the messages that I've been getting to date as well. And I can't wait to come back stronger and go get yourself checked. Just a reminder, get yourself life insurance, look after your family. And then if things come from it, best case is you're covered and nothing came from it and you've got peace of mind. Worst cases, you're not covered for it like I am, and you find out something and you address it rather than waiting for it to address you. And to have my wife, daughter all by my side, I'm pretty blessed by that. And to figure this out in my 30s, I'm pretty lucky if you actually ask me. So looking forward to getting this done, come out the other side. And I've been losing a bunch of weight for this, and I'm going to lose a bunch more weight afterwards, and I'll come back better and stronger. And I look to share as much as I can and be back on the mic. So look forward to seeing you all, speaking to you all, and hopefully you still enjoy the podcast for the months ahead. And I promise that you'll get a lot of value out of it, if not more than what I share, because sometimes there's deeper layers of it that my team can just do better than I can. And I'm sure you're going to experience that over the coming episodes. Thank you again.
The information featured in this podcast is general in nature and does not take into consideration your financial situation or individual needs and should not be relied upon. Before making any investment, insurance, tax, property or financial planning decision, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you. Guests appearing on this podcast may have a commercial relationship with the companies mentioned.
Game over.